Kale sat alone on the edge of the Veralia spaceport dock, his boots dangling just above the metal surface that hummed with energy. The sun of the twin stars was setting, casting long orange streaks across the sky, turning the massive docking tubes into glowing silhouettes. Ships of all shapes and sizes came and went, carrying merchants, travelers, and explorers from distant worlds. Kale often wondered where they were all headed, and why he always seemed to stay behind. At 32, Kale had lived on Veralia for most of his life. His job as a maintenance engineer at the docks gave him purpose, but it could not fill the emptiness inside him. Every day, he fixed ships, monitored docking procedures, and sometimes patched up minor damages caused by careless pilots. It was honest work, and Kale was proud of his skills. But he longed for something more, someone to share his life with. Someone who would understand him. The sounds of the port were familiar. The low rumble of engines, the chatter of alien voices, and the occasional clang of metal hitting metal. Kale preferred working at night when the crowd thinned and the stars above shone bright and clear. It was in these quiet hours that he felt most alive, surrounded by the hum of machines and the twinkle of distant worlds. That evening, Kale was doing routine maintenance on one of the smaller docking tubes when a commotion caught his attention. He glanced up and saw a group of alien merchants arguing heatedly near an abandoned cargo ship. Their voices were sharp, almost metallic, and carried easily across the dock. Kale's curiosity got the better of him. He wiped his hands on a rag and walked over, keeping a safe distance. "They said she is useless," one of the aliens shouted. His long, green arms waved in frustration. "Too old for her purpose. She cannot marry, cannot serve, cannot." Kale's brow furrowed. "Purpose? Serve? Marry?" he muttered to himself. Humans were not the only species that measured value by usefulness, but the harshness in their words was shocking. He edged closer to the cargo ship and peered inside. Inside the cargo hold, among crates and containers, was a figure wrapped in protective cryo-sheets. The shape was humanoid, but Kale could see differences in skin tone and structure. It was clearly female from her frame, though her features were hidden. The aliens continued to argue, eventually leaving in frustration, muttering curses Kale could not understand. Within minutes, the ship was left completely alone, with only Kale and the figure inside. Kale stepped cautiously onto the cargo ramp. "Hello?" he said softly. No response came, just a faint hiss of cooling systems from the cryo wrap. Kale examined her more closely. Her suit had markings that seemed ceremonial, not industrial. Something about her said she was not an ordinary traveler or merchant. She was special. Kale's heart tightened. The words of the alien merchants echoed in his mind. Too old. Age was just a number, he thought. How could anyone dismiss a person, simply because of their age? That thought stayed with him as he carefully opened the cryowrap's control panel. It took a few minutes to override the abandoned system, but finally, the cooling lights dimmed and the chamber released a quiet hiss. The woman stirred. She opened her eyes slowly, revealing deep, intelligent eyes that shimmered with hues of violet and silver. She blinked, disoriented, as though waking from a long dream. Her gaze met Kale's, and for a moment, time seemed to pause. Kale held up his hands in peace. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said softly. "You're safe." The woman's lips moved, forming sounds Kale did not understand. He listened carefully and caught a few syllables he recognized from the basic galactic trade language. She was trying to speak, to communicate. Kale nodded encouragingly. Kale, he said. "I will help you." The woman tilted her head, curiosity and caution mingling in her expression. Her hands, delicate and slightly luminous under the dim dock lights, reached out instinctively to touch Kale's hands, as if testing whether he was real. Kale smiled gently. "Don't worry," he whispered. You're not alone anymore." For the first time in many years, Cale felt a spark of excitement he could not ignore. He carefully helped the woman out of her cryo chamber. Her movements were graceful, despite her initial stiffness, and she seemed to study everything around her, the dock, the ships, the bustling world beyond. Cale noticed the ceremonial markings on her suit again and realized they might indicate noble status, perhaps even royalty. "Are you abandoned?" Cale asked quietly. The woman nodded slowly, a sad but knowing gesture. She did not speak, but her expression conveyed the injustice of being left behind simply because of age. Cale's heart ached for her. He knew what it felt like to be dismissed, overlooked, and underestimated. "I don't care about age or status," Cale said firmly. "I care about you. You deserve respect. You deserve a home. You deserve—" He paused, the thought forming spontaneously, almost daring himself to say it. "You deserve a life with someone who sees your worth. With me." The woman's eyes widened slightly, a mix of surprise and something else Cale could not quite name. Perhaps trust. Perhaps hope. In that quiet moment, Cale made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "Will you be with me?" he asked, his voice steady. For a long moment, she did not respond. The port around them was alive with light and sound, but it felt distant, as though the world had shrunk to the space between them. Finally, she spoke in the trade language, her voice soft but clear. "Yes," she said. Cale's chest lifted with relief and joy. He offered his arm, and she accepted it tentatively. Together, they walked toward the small ceremonial office near the dock. Veralia had rules, simple and quick, for registering marriages even for travelers or out-of-system arrivals. Cale knew it would be unusual, but he did not care. He wanted her to feel safe, to feel recognized. Inside the office, a single clerk raised an eyebrow at the sight of a human and a clearly alien woman seeking marriage. Cale explained gently, "She is abandoned. She deserves dignity. I will marry her." The clerk blinked, then nodded slowly. "Very well," he said, producing the necessary forms. Within minutes, Cale and the woman Lyra, as she introduced herself, were wed. The ceremony was simple but meaningful. A few other dock workers and travelers witnessed it. Offering polite nods and quiet congratulations, Cale and Lyra stepped out into the fading sunlight, hand in hand, feeling a bond stronger than either of them had expected. Though the stars above were countless and the universe vast, in that moment, they felt grounded, connected, and seen. Cale's loneliness, which had felt permanent, was replaced by a new kind of hope. As they walked back toward Cale's small quarters near the maintenance bay, Lyra studied her surroundings, absorbing the life of the human settlement. Cale noticed her curiosity and knew she would adapt quickly. Her intelligence, grace, and resilience were clear even after a few hours. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice carrying warmth. "For what?" Cale asked. "For seeing me," she replied. "For not leaving me behind." Cale smiled. "That's what humans do," he said simply. "We see, we care, and we fight for what's right. Even if the rest of the universe forgets you, I won't." Lyra smiled, a genuine curve of understanding and trust. For Cale, this was more than companionship, it was a beginning. Together, they would face whatever challenges awaited them in the vastness of space. Alone, they had survived. Together, they could thrive. As night fell over Veralia, Cale and Lyra sat on the dock, watching ships depart and arrive, dreaming of the journeys ahead. Somewhere among the stars, countless adventures awaited, but for now, they had each other. And in a universe that often judged by age, species, or status, they had found what truly mattered: recognition, respect, and the courage to embrace life without fear. The next morning, Veralia's twin suns rose slowly over the horizon, casting long streaks of light across the bustling spaceport. Kale had spent the night preparing a small room for Lyra near his quarters, arranging a cot, storage for her belongings, and a workbench where she could examine and repair any small devices she might find useful. Though she did not need much, Kale knew that comfort and familiarity would help her recover from the shock of abandonment. Lyra woke before sunrise, her eyes wide and shimmering in the soft morning light. She stood slowly, testing her balance and strength, and then walked to the small window overlooking the dock. The ships below were already stirring cargo freighters and personal transports moving in choreographed chaos. She turned to Kale with a quiet curiosity. "This place, humans live here?" she asked in the trade language. Her voice was melodic, calm, yet curious. "Yes," Kale replied, smiling. "This is where I work and live. It's not fancy, but it's home." Lyra nodded thoughtfully. "It is different, busy, but alive." Kale led her to breakfast, a simple meal of synthesized bread, fruit, and protein cubes. Lyra observed the human utensils and motions carefully, picking up the bread and tasting it delicately. Kale watched her, fascinated by the way she studied everything as if it were a puzzle to solve. "You are careful," he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. Lyra looked at him, her silver eyes reflecting both intelligence and a cautious trust. "I must be," she said softly. "I do not know this world or its rules." "You will learn," Kale said confidently, "and I'll help you." After breakfast, Kale guided Lyra to the dock. The bustling crowd of humans and aliens made her pause, her expression a mixture of wonder and apprehension. Merchants shouted, ships landed with loud clanks, and the smell of fuel and metal filled the air. Kale gestured toward the crowds. "This is where I spend most of my day. You'll see all kinds of beings, traders, travelers, engineers. Some may stare, some may ignore you. Don't worry about them. Just be yourself." Lyra tilted her head, taking it all in. She walked slowly, examining the ships and machinery, her fingers brushing against the smooth metal of a landing ramp. Kale noticed a faint smile cross her face. "You like this?" he asked. "It is fascinating," she replied. "Every vessel tells a story. Each one has a purpose, a design, a life of its own." Kale laughed softly. "That's one way to see it. I like your perspective." As they walked further down the dock, whispers began to spread among the dock workers and nearby merchants. Many had heard of the human who had married the too old alien woman. Some stared openly, others tried to conceal their curiosity, and a few openly mocked the idea. Kale noticed and ignored it. "People will talk," he said quietly. "Let them. What matters is what we do, not what they think." Lyra looked up at him, her violet eyes shining. "Your species values courage," Kale shrugged. "Sometimes. Sometimes we just try to do what's right, even if it's hard." The couple stopped at a small repair station where Kale worked. He introduced Lyra to some of his colleagues, humans and aliens alike. The initial reactions were a mixture of surprise and skepticism. Many whispered among themselves, pointing subtly, but Kale and Lyra ignored them. One of the engineers, a tall human named Jorn, raised an eyebrow. "You married her, just like that?" he asked. Kale nodded. "Yes, she deserved dignity. She deserved someone to see her value. That's enough reason." Lyra smiled faintly, touched by Kale's words. "He does not care about what others say," she whispered. "Yes," Kale said softly, taking her hand. "I do not care. Not for her. Not for anyone who is judged unfairly." The morning passed with Kale showing Lyra around the repair bay. She observed the human tools and alien devices, quickly learning their purpose and function. Her movements were careful and precise, and Kale marveled at her intelligence. It became clear that despite being considered too old by her species, She possessed skills, knowledge, and insight far beyond what many expected. "Your society," Kale asked, "really judges you only by age?" Lara sighed, a faint metallic shimmer running through her skin as she exhaled. "Yes, we are. Expected to marry, serve, and perform duties before a certain age. After that, many are discarded, seen as unnecessary." Kale frowned. "That is cruel," Lyra shrugged. "It is custom, tradition, but not all customs are just." She paused, looking out at the bustling spaceport. "You did not see me that way. I saw a person," Kale said simply. "Someone abandoned, yes, but not useless, worth seeing, worth protecting." Lyra's gaze lingered on him. "You are human?" "Yes," Kale replied with a faint smile. "And humans can be stubborn, brave, and sometimes foolish. But I can also see what others cannot. That is why I chose you." Lara studied him, her expression softening. "I am grateful and curious about your world, your ways." Kale's heart lifted. "Then I will teach you. We'll explore together." As the day moved on, Kale and Lyra moved further along the dock. They encountered merchants selling exotic goods, spices that shimmered, fabrics that floated, and gadgets that buzzed with energy. Lyra's eyes widened at each stall. She touched a fabric that glowed gently, her fingers tracing the patterns. "Such artistry," she said in awe. Kale chuckled. "It's a messy, loud world, but sometimes it has beauty." Suddenly, a group of alien dock workers approached, whispering and pointing at Lyra. One of them stepped forward, a tall figure with green scales and elongated fingers. "That is Lyra, yes?" he asked in a tone of disbelief. Kale stepped slightly in front of her. "Yes, she is Lyra. She is my wife. And she has every right to be here." The alien blinked, taken aback. "You're human? She abandoned?" Kale nodded firmly. "Yes, and your judgment does not matter." Lyra placed a hand on Kale's arm, steadying him. "Let them talk," she said softly. "Their words are not ours." The dock workers muttered and moved along, still staring but no longer confronting them. Kale exhaled, feeling the tension drain from his shoulders. "See," he said. "Some challenges are simply ignored, and they vanish." Lyra smiled faintly. "You are patient, brave, and I try," Kale said. "Not always successfully, but I try." The afternoon was spent with Kale showing Lyra his favorite spots on the dock. They watched cargo ships unload precious minerals, watched small human children run between crates, and even spotted a distant freighter leaving for a neighboring system. Lyra absorbed it all, asking questions about each machine, each procedure. Her curiosity was insatiable, but Kale found it refreshing. "You learn quickly," Kale observed. Lyra tilted her head. I cannot rely on others. I must survive, adapt. And now I must live fully." Kale smiled, seeing determination in her eyes. "You will. And I will help." By evening, Kale and Lyra returned to his quarters. The suns had dipped below the horizon, leaving streaks of violet and orange across the sky. The air was cooler now, and the sounds of the spaceport softened to a steady hum. They sat together, watching the stars reflect on the polished metal of the dock. Kale offered her a simple meal of nutrient packs and water, which she accepted gratefully. "You changed my life," Lyra said quietly, her gaze fixed on the distant stars. Kale shook his head. "No, you changed mine. You remind me why life is worth living, why hope matters, why courage is necessary." Lyra looked at him, her expression softening. "Then together we will face what comes." "Yes," Kale said, taking her hand in his. Together. For the first time, Kale felt that the vast, lonely universe was not so empty. With Lyra by his side, every star seemed brighter, every shadow less frightening. The future was uncertain, yes, but it was theirs to shape. And that thought gave him hope he had not felt in years. As night deepened over Veralia, Kale and Lyra sat in quiet companionship. The dock hummed softly, ships glided in and out, and somewhere far off, a star freighter disappeared into the infinite black. Life on the frontier was unpredictable and harsh, but in that moment, Kale and Lyra found peace in each other's presence. They were no longer a lone dot, and for the first time, Kale realized that sometimes the greatest adventures did not begin with a map or a mission. They began with a simple act of seeing, understanding, and choosing to stand together. The sun rose again over Veralia, painting the dock in shades of gold and amber. Kale and Lyra had spent the past few days settling into a small routine. Kale continued his maintenance work, while Lyra explored the spaceport, learning about human culture and technology. Despite the calm, the whispers of the dock's inhabitants had not disappeared. Some stared openly. Others murmured behind cupped hands. Kale noticed it immediately as he walked with Lyra toward the repair bay. A group of aliens, sleek and sharp-eyed, had gathered near one of the landing platforms. Their whispers carried in the air. "The human who married an old alien," one hissed. "Foolishness. Disrespectful to tradition." Lyra's expression hardened slightly, but she kept her composure. Kale placed a steadying hand on her arm. "Ignore them," he said quietly. "They see only rules, not reality." Lyra looked at him, violet eyes thoughtful. "Your species does not judge as strictly?" "Not always," Kale admitted. "We still have our flaws, but humans can choose courage and compassion over rigid rules. We believe in helping, in protecting. That's why I married you." The couple continued walking, undeterred, and reached the repair bay. Kale introduced Lyra to the team more formally. Joran, the tall human engineer, and a few aliens nodded politely, though curiosity lingered in their expressions. Lyra demonstrated an impressive understanding of engineering principles, quickly adapting to the tools and systems Kale had shown her. "You learn fast," Kale observed. "I must," Lyra replied. "I cannot rely on others. I must survive and adapt." Her skill impressed even the skeptical dock workers. Soon, murmurs shifted from judgment to intrigue. Many aliens had never seen a woman considered too old by her society exhibit such intelligence and capability. Kale noticed the change and smiled subtly. "See?" he whispered. "People respect what they can't ignore." But not all were willing to respect easily. A visiting delegation of alien merchants arrived, and upon seeing Lyra, their leader, a tall being with silver-scaled skin, frowned. "You have married her?" he demanded in a clipped tone. "She is beyond the proper age." "What is this? Human foolishness?" Kale stepped forward, standing firmly. "Yes, I married her. She is capable, intelligent, and deserving of respect. Age does not diminish that. Nor does tradition have the power to dictate value." The alien leader's eyes narrowed, clearly unconvinced. "Your species is unusual," he said, his voice a mixture of scorn and curiosity. "We will see how long your arrangement lasts." Kale did not flinch. "We will see," he said calmly, gesturing for Lyra to stay close. Once the delegation moved on, Kale turned to Lyra. "Some people will always judge," he said. "But that doesn't make them right. Or us wrong." Lyra nodded, a quiet determination in her eyes. "I will not let them control me. Not anymore. Not with you by my side." Their days continued with small victories. Kale showed Lyra the details of ship maintenance, and she quickly learned how to handle minor repairs, navigation systems, and diagnostics. Together, they fixed broken landing pads, repaired energy conduits, and even recalibrated a docking computer that had been malfunctioning for weeks. During these tasks, Kale noticed how Lyra's intelligence and creativity often surpassed expectations. She suggested solutions that no one had thought of, combining human methods with insights from her alien heritage. Slowly, even the skeptics began to nod with approval. "You two make a good team," Joran admitted one afternoon, clapping Kale on the shoulder. "I didn't expect it, but she knows her way around tech." Kale grinned. "I told you. She's remarkable." Lyra smiled faintly, her silver eyes gleaming. "Your people value action over words," she observed. "That is wise. Many judge by appearances. You judge by results." Kale laughed softly. "Sometimes. Most of the time, we just try to do what's right." Despite their growing respect among some, prejudice was never far away. A group of younger aliens, not yet familiar with Lyra's skill, deliberately left debris near a ship Kale was repairing, hoping to cause a minor accident. Lyra noticed immediately. "Kale," she said, pointing to the obstruction. "They wish to test us. To embarrass you." Kale frowned. "I suspected as much. But we'll turn it to our advantage." Together, they worked quickly. Lyra calculated the best way to clear the debris without damaging the ship. Kale guided the team to execute the plan efficiently. Within minutes, the ship was ready for takeoff, and the young aliens who had tried to sabotage them watched in astonishment. "You managed," one muttered. Kale smiled. "We managed, together." By now, Lyra had become comfortable not just with the dock, but with human ways of thinking. She learned to joke lightly with workers, predict schedules, and even navigate the politics of the port. Kale admired her resilience. Every challenge she faced, prejudice, confusion, unfamiliarity, she met with intelligence and composure. One evening, as the sun set and the dock lights flickered on, Kale and Lyra stood on a high platform, watching ships come and go. "You were right," Lyra said softly. "Some humans are brave, not only in battle, but in life. You do not accept injustice. You act." Kale nodded. "We have to. Life is short. The universe is bigger than us, but that doesn't mean we cannot make a difference." Lyra smiled faintly. "And you have made a difference in mine." Kale felt warmth spread through him. "And you and mine. We see each other. That is what matters." The next day brought a new challenge. A cargo ship had malfunctioned and was stuck in the docking tube, threatening to block several departures. The spaceport officials were at a loss. Kale immediately volunteered, with Lyra at his side. "Think you can help?" one official asked skeptically. Kale glanced at Lyra, who gave a small nod. Together, they assessed the problem. Lyra suggested a method to stabilize the ship using a combination of human magnetic clamps and alien energy stabilizers. Kale followed her plan precisely, coordinating with the dock crew. Hours passed, and by nightfall, the ship was safely docked and unloaded. Officials who had doubted them earlier now offered grudging respect. "You are impressive," one said. "Both of you?" Kale shrugged. "We just do what needs to be done." Lyra, standing beside him, added, "We see solutions others overlook. Together, we succeed." By the end of the week, Kale and Lyra had turned heads at the spaceport. Their unusual marriage had become a symbol not of defiance alone, but of human ingenuity, adaptability, and courage. Many began to speak in quiet admiration, acknowledging that this human and his alien wife had achieved what others thought impossible. Even the Silver-Scale delegation, which had initially doubted them, sent a message of cautious approval. Kale read it aloud to Lyra. "We will watch with interest. Your union challenges tradition, but we cannot deny skill and results." Lyra's eyes softened. "Perhaps respect can grow. Slowly, yes?" Kale smiled. Respect often comes slowly, but action, courage, and integrity always speak louder than words. That evening, Kale and Lyra returned to their quarters, exhausted but satisfied. They shared a quiet meal, discussing the day's events, plans for future repairs, and small dreams of exploring other systems together. "You have changed this place," Lyra said softly. "Not only for us, but for others who might be overlooked, abandoned, or dismissed." Kale shook his head. "No, you have changed it. You showed me what is possible. We act together, yes, but you inspired the courage to do more." Lyra leaned back, looking at the twin suns disappearing below the horizon. "Then we continue, together." "Yes," Kale said, holding her hand. "Together, always." As night fell over Veralia, the dock quieted, and the stars appeared above like scattered diamonds. Kale and Lyra sat in companionable silence, knowing that their path would not be easy, but confident that together they could face whatever challenges the universe sent their way. They were no longer just a human and an alien, woman abandoned by her society. They were partners, innovators, and pioneers. And as they looked out over the spaceport, they saw not just the hum of machinery, but the promise of respect, understanding, and acceptance, proof that courage and human ingenuity could shine even in the face of prejudice. The morning air at Veralia Spaceport felt heavier than usual. Kale noticed the tension as he and Lyra walked toward the docks. A sense of unease seemed to hang over the station, though most workers were unaware. Something was wrong. Lyra, walking beside him, sensed it first. "Kale, I feel it," she said softly, her silver eyes scanning the horizon. "Something approaches." Kale followed her gaze and spotted a distant freighter moving unusually fast toward the station. Its markings were foreign and aggressive, an unregistered ship, not on any docking schedule. His instincts flared. "Mercenaries," he muttered. "They're after you." Lyra's eyes widened. "Why?" "I am. Not a prize." "They know your lineage," Kale explained grimly. "Some factions believe your noble blood gives them leverage, power, or credit. They won't care about your wishes." Panic fluttered in Lyra's chest, but Kale held her hand. "We'll face them together," he said firmly. "Humans have a way of turning impossible situations into solutions." The mercenary ship landed roughly on a nearby platform, its engines screaming warnings. Alien figures emerged, armed with energy tools and defensive gear. Dock workers scattered in fear. Kale and Lyra stood their ground. "We need a plan," Kale whispered. "We cannot fight them head-on." "Not yet." Lyra's mind worked rapidly. "The cargo bays. We could trap them," she suggested. "If we collapse part of the docking mechanism, they cannot advance without danger." Kale nodded. "Good. Let's move." Working together, they coordinated a team of dock engineers. Lyra guided them, pointing out weak structural points, while Kale improvised with human technology magnetic clamps, energy shields, and repurposed repair bots. Within an hour, a clever trap was set. The mercenaries advanced, confident in their numbers. As they crossed the trap, the docking floor shifted, magnetic clamps activated, and energy barriers rose. The intruders were forced to halt, trapped by their own recklessness. Kale and Lyra moved forward carefully. Using handheld tools and improvised devices, they disabled the mercenaries' weapons one by one, avoiding unnecessary harm. Lyra's knowledge of alien engineering proved invaluable, as she quickly identified the vulnerabilities in their equipment. "This way," Lyra called, guiding Kale toward the command panel of the mercenary ship. "We can lock them in." Kale grinned, impressed by her courage and quick thinking. Together, they activated the controls, sealing the ship and disabling its engines. The mercenaries banged on the doors, frustrated and trapped, while Kale and Lyra stepped back, Victorious .Doc authorities arrived moments later, shocked by the outcome. How? One official stammered. Kale shrugged. We improvise. We think ahead. And we protect those who cannot protect themselves. Lyra, standing beside him, added, Strength is not just power. It is intelligence, courage, and unity. The incident spread across the station quickly. Workers, traders, and even alien delegates marveled at how a human and an abandoned alien woman had outsmarted a dangerous mercenary faction. Prejudices began to weaken, replaced by respect and admiration. That evening, Kale and Lyra returned to their quarters, exhausted but satisfied. Lyra looked at the stars through the small viewport. The universe is dangerous, she said quietly. Kale nodded. Yes, but humans have a way of facing danger and turning it into opportunity. That's what makes us strong. Lyra leaned her head on his shoulder. And together, we're stronger. Kale smiled. Exactly. Together, we can face whatever comes next. For the first time, they realized that courage, ingenuity, and trust in one another could turn even the gravest threat into a victory. And the galaxy, vast and unpredictable, suddenly felt like a place where hope could thrive. The following weeks at Veralia brought both calm and change. News of Kale and Lyra's victory over the mercenaries spread across the frontier systems. Stories circulated of the human who married the too old alien bride and how they had outsmarted a dangerous faction together. Prejudice softened, replaced with cautious admiration. Kale and Lyra's lives settled into a rhythm. Lyra continued learning human technology and culture, quickly mastering tasks that had once seemed alien and complex. Kale, in turn, learned more about her heritage and skills, fascinated by her combination of logic, intuition, and grace. Together, they repaired ships, improved docking procedures, and helped travelers navigate the often chaotic spaceport. One afternoon, a group of young aliens approached them, timid but curious. We saw what you did, one said softly. You defended the dock. You saved lives. Kale smiled gently. Yes, and that means anyone can act with courage, no matter what others say. Lyra added, Your actions, your choices, define you more than your age, appearance, or status. The young aliens nodded, inspired by the example. Slowly, respect and acceptance began to replace prejudice across the station. Other abandoned or overlooked aliens began seeking Kale and Lyra for guidance and support. Hoping to learn how to survive and thrive in the galaxy, Kale and Lyra decided to establish a small sanctuary near the dock, a safe haven for those who had been dismissed, abandoned, or underestimated. Using their combined knowledge, they built living quarters, training areas, and workshops. Humans and aliens worked together, learning from one another, sharing skills, and building trust. Lyra taught engineering and strategy, blending her alien knowledge with Kale's human ingenuity. Kale taught problem-solving, creativity, and resilience. Their sanctuary became a hub of innovation and learning, attracting visitors from distant systems. One evening, after a long day of repairs and teaching, Kale and Lyra sat together on a platform overlooking the dock. Ships glided past, engines humming softly, and the twin suns cast a warm glow over the metal surfaces. We've done well, Lyra said, leaning against Kale. This place, it is changing. Not just for us, for everyone. Kale smiled, watching the ships. Yes, and it will continue to grow. The universe is bigger than this dock, bigger than Veralia. But the lessons we teach here, they spread. Lyra looked at him, her eyes reflecting determination and hope. Then we continue, explore, help, build. Kale nodded. Together, always. Their bond, forged through shared danger, mutual respect, and understanding had become unbreakable. They faced prejudice, threat, and uncertainty, yet emerged stronger each time. Their lives were proof that courage, ingenuity, and compassion could overcome fear, hatred, and rigid tradition. As months passed, Kale and Lyra began planning journeys beyond Veralia. They studied star charts, repaired small ships, and prepared for explorations of distant systems. Lyra's alien knowledge and Kale's human ingenuity complemented one another perfectly, making them a formidable team.